everyone, and welcome to the 100th episode of Don't Forget the Popcorn. Well, guys, it's been a long road, but we've reached 100 episodes of the show. I just want to thank everyone who's watched the video, subscribed, liked, commented, or anything to support. It's all been much appreciated, and I can't thank you guys enough. And I'm glad to be able to still do this, and I still love it. So we got to do something fun for it. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of me and tell you my 100 favorite movies of all time. So let me say this. I had no rules on this except it had to be a feature film. I wanted to put the Decalogue in here from Krzysztof Kieslowski, but it's technically a TV show, so I didn't include it. This list are my favorites, not the movies I think are the best. That list will maybe be made in a few years. I still haven't seen a lot of acclaimed films, so I'm not ready. This was a hard list to make. Some of the movies I left off just broke my heart, but I had to go with films that just jumped at me. Ones I've seen a lot, I talk about a lot, quote a lot. I'm sure some of you will judge me by my list, and that's okay. So why don't you like and subscribe, follow me on Letterboxd, Ralph Vader, I'll link that below, and you tell me your 10 favorite movies of all time in the comment section. This will be a long one, and I worked hard on it for you guys, so grab a snack, a drink, and let's get into my 100 favorite movies of all time. Number 100. Sunset Boulevard, 1950, directed by Billy Wilder. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. Sunset Boulevard is about a writer who ends up dating a fading, aging silent film star who thinks she is going to be back at the top again. This movie is wild, and for 1950, I think it was ahead of its time. Billy Wilder is an incredible director, and it really shows what the future was going to hold for him. We get a dynamite performance from Gloria Swanson. Her or Bette Davis should have won the Oscar that year. If you like old Hollywood movies, this is one you should watch. 99, Inside Out, 2015, directed by Pete Docter. I don't think this movie needs an introduction. This movie is one of the best written kids movies I've seen in a while. The way they show us how the different emotions affect the mind and body is so incredible and realistic. I laughed hard and I cried hard. I'll tell you, when I first saw this, I did not expect to cry the way I did. Holy hell, it was flowing. I think this is easily one of the best animated films ever made. I know it has its haters, and that's cool, but I love this one. 98, 30 Minutes or Less, 2011, directed by Ruben Fleischer. 30 Minutes or Less is one of those movies that you had to kind of be there. I feel like if you watch this for the first time now, you might not like it. But I have seen this movie a million times. It's so funny, so stupid. But Danny McBride and Aziz Ansari are absolutely hilarious in this, and we get a nice comedic turn from Michael Pena. This movie is about two guys who strap a bomb to a pizza delivery guy and force him to rob a bank. I have seen this movie at least 60 times. I can quote this thing start to finish. It's a problem. 97. Dead Presidents, 1995, directed by the Hughes brothers. I truly think Dead Presidents is one of the most underrated movies of all time. A gritty look at Vietnam War from the African American community. We get a nice dramatic turn from Chris Tucker in this, and Lorenz Tate gives another good performance in a Hughes movie. We may talk about that movie later. This movie is violent and angry. It tells a real story, a story that was sadly a lot of people's lives back then. I know a lot of people haven't seen this, so I highly suggest this one. 96. The Water Boy, 1998, directed by Frank Carosi. I am sure I'm going to be judged right now for putting an Adam Sandler movie up here. But this is one of those sports comedies that cannot be denied. I really don't know why everyone hates Adam Sandler. He's freaking hilarious. Are his films masterpieces? Not by any means, but they are classics, a lot of them. The Waterboy is one of the best football movies ever. It's funny and dumb, of course, but so rewatchable and quotable. And Kathy Bates is great as Bobby's mom. If you've never seen this, I'd watch it at least once. 95. Tombstone, 1992, directed by George P. Cosmatos. This movie is one big mess of a movie, and I love every minute of it. Tombstone, despite what many would say is a very flawed film, but when you get performances like Val Kilmer playing Doc Holliday and Kurt Russell playing Wyatt Earp, it can't be denied. Tombstone has some of the best Western action of all time. It's non-stop, really, and we get great performances from Powers Booth and Michael Biehn, too. If you want a good way to kill 2 hours with some mindless fun, just throw Tombstone on. 94. Cool Hand Luke, 1967, directed by Stuart Rosenberg. What we have here is a failure to communicate. One of my favorite Paul Newman movies. This movie is about a man who goes to jail and put on a chain gang. He rebels against the authorities and inspires the inmates to think. I'll leave it at that. Cool Hand Luke is funny, inspiring, and heartbreaking all at once. If Paul Newman should have won for anything in his younger years, it should have been this. We see one of the coolest friendships spark in this movie, too. There's not really too many jails movies like this one. 93. Skate Kitchen, 2018, directed by Crystal Moselle. I know this is probably a weird one, especially when you see how it stacks up with the rest of the list. I'm not saying this movie is great, but it's fun, a nice take on skating from the lady perspective. This movie got me inspired to get back on the board. I throw it on every so often and always get sucked right in. This movie is about a young girl who meets a group of lady skaters and they all bond and skate. It's a hangout movie at the end of the day, but what I love about it is it feels real. It's not about these girls chasing this far-fetched dream of going pro. They aren't even crazy good, but it shows what skating is. Fun and family. 92. Risky Business, 1983, directed by Paul Brickman. Even if you haven't seen this coming-of-age classic, you likely know the scene with Tom Cruise dancing in his underwear to the one song. Risky Business is one of those eerie Chicago movies. It just feels like a long dream. There is a mood to this movie that I think sets it aside from all the other 80s Chicago-based movies. This ain't Ferris Bueller or Pretty in Pink. This movie is slick and sexy. Tom Cruise gives a star-making performance, showing us who he was gonna become in the future. The man. He's got a brilliant score and some great direction. 91. Nightcrawler, 2014, directed by Dan Gilroy. A slick thriller about the news business. We see Jake Gyllenhaal give an Oscar-worthy performance in this, playing an overly determined news journalist who will stop at nothing to get to the top. This is easily Jake's best performance and a brilliant screenplay by Gilroy. We see a character study about a man who is hard to quite put your finger on as a person. In one way, I admire this character out there going for what he wants, but on the other hand, his methods he uses to get there are insane. If you haven't seen this one, as the video is over, you need to go watch it. 90. The Crow, 1994, directed by Alex Proyas. A movie where the soundtrack is just as good as the film, or maybe even better. The Crow is one of those defining 90s action movies, a fun and edgy movie that every goth kid in middle school was obsessed with, and for good reason. Brandon Lee gave us a taste of what he could do before he tragically died in the making of this movie. This movie is super quotable and, more importantly, super rewatchable. This is one you should absolutely watch this Halloween, or maybe on Devil's Night. Halloween ain't till mañana. 89. Happy Gilmore, 1996, directed by Dennis Dugan. He's back again, and like I said before, I don't care if you don't like Adam. This movie is my childhood. My mother took me to see this, and we went to IHOP after. It was a great time. Over the years, we have watched it several times since. Young Adam was a force to be reckoned with, and this is one of his most beloved movies. This movie is so quotable, so funny, and makes golf look cool. Shooter McGavin is one of the best movie villains of all time. Bob Barker makes one of the best cameos of all time, and if you like sports movies, just give this one a chance. Rest in peace, Carl Weathers. 88. Iron Man. 2008. Directed by Jon Favreau. What a way to kick off the MCU with my favorite superhero and one of the coolest hero flicks we've ever gotten. It all started here. If Iron Man would have flopped, the MCU wouldn't be what it is today. Robert Downey Jr. gives us maybe the best hero adaptation of all time, playing billionaire playboy philanthropist Tony Stark. This movie changed the game. It's fun and slick with some dope action and great origin story. Jon Favreau does not get enough credit for what he did with this movie. Without him, the MCU and current phase of Star Wars wouldn't be what it is. 87. The Girl Next Door, 2004, directed by Luke Greenfield. This is one of those childhood favorites of mine, and my love for it has carried into adulthood. This isn't one you guys are going to think is great, but this is one of my favorites. I mean, it's funny. It's one of those movies that brings me back to a certain time in life that I loved and love to visit my memories. Some movies just do that to you. They make you feel a certain way and put you on a certain emotional in you. It's got a great performance from Emile Hirsch and Timothy Olyphant and a pretty good soundtrack. If you haven't seen this, I mean, it fits when it came out. So take that and make what you want of it. 86. Mean Girls, 2004, directed by Mark Waters. We all have seen this one. I don't need to tell you what it's about. I remember seeing this movie back in 6th grade and thinking it was the funniest thing ever. The four girls in this movie bring it hard. Regina George is one of the best movie villains of all time, and Rachel McAdams plays her to perfection. A coming-of-age classic, and that remake, you can miss me with that. This is one of the most quotable ones on the list. Remember, it only counts if you saw a nipple. 85. Hereditary, 2018, directed by Ari Aster. A movie that's not original, but original in its approach. We've all seen the cult family horror movie, but Ari Aster made this thing like Gordon Ramsay. He gives us a horror movie with such style and grace. It's beautifully edited, but what really makes it work is its cast. Toni Collette gave an Oscar-worthy performance. Charlie is one of the most interesting characters I've seen in a horror movie. So many scenes are really chilling and unsettling. I mean, the scene with Charlie in the car blew me away when I first saw it. If you haven't seen this, put this on this Halloween season. 84. One from the Heart, 1981, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Oh, this is one a lot of people hate. I truly don't understand why. It's got a bunch of my favorite things: Vegas, romance, and fun musical numbers, but not too many. This is a beautiful, bright, colorful love story about two people who are meant for each other but can't see that right away. Francis wanted to do this movie very badly and put his all into it and got nothing in return. It's a shame because I think this movie is so harshly judged. I fell in love with this movie the first time I saw it. I think if you have a glass of wine and put this on with an open mind, you may see the genius in it. 83. Revenge of the Sith, 2005, directed by George Lucas. Now look, I know the prequels aren't the preferred viewing, but this one is the one. Seeing the crazy turn to the dark side from Anakin and the birth of Darth Vader. This movie is so rewatchable. And guess what else? I think Hayden Christensen was good in this one. The movie is so much fun. We get General Grievous, Order 66, and of course the birth of Luke and Leia. This movie is some great action, and the story is pretty good too. Did we need it? Maybe not, but it's just a fun look at the mind of Mr. Lucas. I'm sure you've all seen this one. Watch it again if you think it's trash. 82. Harold and Maude, 1971, directed by Hal Ashby. What a lovely film. This is a 70s classic about a young man who falls in love with a much, much older woman. They bond over their love for funerals, they enjoy some sweet and beautiful moments together. Harold becomes a young man with his adventures with Maud, and it's a lovely ending. Bud Cort and Ruth Gordon give some all star performances in this. This is one of the most interesting love stories I've ever seen. Watch this if you're a fan of 70s movies. 81. Drop Dead Gorgeous, 1999. Directed by Michael Patrick Tran. This movie is a childhood favorite. Another one I watched with my mother a lot. This film, over time, has gained a nice cult following, and for good reason. This film is hilarious. It's about a small town putting on a pageant, and all the contestants are super quirky in one way or another. Some of the most interesting personalities. A bunch of future stars led by Kirsten Dunst. We get a great performance from Amy Adams and the late Brittany Murphy. This is another kind of coming of age story, and this one is one of those movies that could have only come out in '99. This was the year for these kinds of movies. This one I can watch anytime you put it on. 80. Dazed and Confused, 1993. Directed by Richard Linklater. Another coming of age high school movie. This will not be the last either. A fun hangout movie, and these kids in the 70s are just trying to party on the last day of school. Cruising around, smoking weed, drinking, and trying to get chicks. I mean, that's what a lot of teens do. This movie is funny and has a bunch of future stars in it. Too many to name. This movie makes me wish I grew up in the 70s. It was a different time and a different vibe. This is honestly a high school love letter to the 70s with a beautiful soundtrack and some great costuming. If you haven't seen this, you should just jump to the top of your watch list. 79. Ratatouille, 2007. Directed by Brad Bird. This is another that needs no introduction. One of Pixar's best and such a heartwarming movie. Ratatouille is about a little rat named Remy who is an incredible chef. Remy ends up working with a guy and he moves to the top of the culinary game. This movie is great because it teaches us not to judge books by their covers. Remy can be a metaphor for a lot of different things in life. Aside from all the mushy stuff in this movie, it's funny and the score perfectly fits each scene. It enhances the experience, almost like you can smell the food through the screen. I just adore this film to its core, and it's one for all ages. 78. Perfect Blue, 1997. Directed by Satoshi Kon. Rest in peace, Satoshi. Perfect Blue is an incredible and eerie anime movie with that super 90s anime vibe. This movie is about a J-pop singer who leaves her group to be an actress, and life gets really strange after she does. This movie is mysterious and fun, but also has one of the most vile assault scenes ever, and it's a cartoon. This film, I think, is Khan's magnum opus. I love Paprika too, but this is the one. This movie is a vibe, one to set a mood and chill with, even though it is quite graphic. This is one of the defining anime movies of the 90s, and it is not talked about enough. 77. American Pie, 1999. Directed by Paul Weitz. Oh, this movie needs no introduction. An all-timer in the high school comedy genre, this movie is responsible for so many phrases people still use today. That's when you know a movie is a classic. This raunchy comedy is about some virgins who all make a bet to lose their virginity by prom. And the things they do to get there is just hilarious. I know everyone has seen this one. I saw this movie when I was like 8, probably too young to be watching it. The pie scene alone is a mind blower. 76. Melancholia, 2011. Directed by Lars von Trier. One of the best sci-fi movies ever made and one of the most interesting directors to ever make movies. Lars's newer films are all gorgeous. They're beautifully edited and have some gorgeous cinematography. This movie has that, and this is one of his most tame movies because, man, Lars has some crazy shit out there. This film is about a woman who senses the world is going to end as a free-floating planet is coming near Earth. Now, I must say, this isn't going to be for everyone, but I think it's one you should give a chance. Kirsten Dunst and Charlotte Gainsbourg give us all-time performances in this. 75. Thief, 1981, directed by Michael Mann. One of the most stylish and gorgeous movies from the 80s. Michael Mann just has this look to his films that's so nice in the 80s. Manhunter has that look too. This is also has one of the best 80 cent scores you're ever going to hear. Thief is about an incredible thief, played brilliantly by my man James Caan, who wants out of the game, but of course, the game won't let him. This movie is just badass. Good plot to go with its good style. I think this movie honestly plays a role in the formation of 80s pop culture. Watch this movie with the lights out and the sound up. 74. The Searchers, 1956, directed by John Ford. Clearly one of the best westerns ever made and one of my all-time favorites. This, for me, and Rio Bravo are the John Wayne movies to watch. Of course, he has a bunch of good ones. He's a Duke. The Searcher is iconic in so many ways. The final shot alone is worth it all. This movie truly at its core is about an outlaw who has no idea who he is and where he wants to be after the war. This is an adventure movie with some fun action, silly laughs along the way. But what we are looking for is very important. This film has some of the best Western cinematography from the 50s and a beautiful score to match. 73. City of God, 2002, directed by Fernando Meirelles. One of the best crime movies, and it comes out of Brazil. I think they're about to make a TV show based on this. City of God is a crazy coming of age story where they show us how rough it is growing up in the other parts of the world. Lil Dice is one of the sickest movie villains of all time. And as crazy as this movie is, it's still so beautiful with some fun scenes of the beach and some fun party scenes. It's one of those movies that will make you appreciate where you are in life if you live in a nice area. Although there's some dark stuff in this is a fun time and brutal, all in the best ways. 72. Wild Strawberries, 1957, directed by Ingmar Bergman. A beautiful Swedish film by one of my favorite directors. Wild Strawberries, to me, is a movie about going with the flow. This film is about an older man who has a dream that makes him think about his mortality. He ends up going on a road trip with his daughter-in-law, and they end up meeting a lot of people along the way, and pieces of his past are unveiled. This movie is just magic. Ingmar has a way with painting a picture and setting a mood with such minimalism. There's nothing to this movie but beautiful acting, directing, cinematography, and a lovely story. This is a feel-good movie for me. Watch this if you haven't seen it. 71. Jawbreaker, 1999, directed by Darren Stein. This is one of my favorites from the great year of 99. I have fond memories of this movie. I used to watch it with my mom all the time. It's one of those eerie time capsule movies that when you watch it, it just brings you back to 99. This movie is about a group of girls in high school who accidentally kill their friend on her birthday and they try to cover it up. This movie is funny, raw, and kind of wild. We get some pretty ladies and some familiar faces in this movie. I know this one doesn't have the best reputation, but it's one of those personal ones to me that I will always love. 70. Hard Boiled, 1992, directed by John Woo. One of the absolute best action movies ever made. This classic from Hong Kong gave us some of the best gun fu of all time. This movie has clearly influenced a ton of action movies that came after it. This movie is about two cops, one on the inside and one on the out, working together to take down a bad guy. This movie has some of the best action scenes of all time, and we get all-star performances from Chow Yun-fat and Tony Leung. If you haven't seen this, you must watch it. 69. Lawrence of Arabia, 1962, directed by David Lean. The blueprint for a lot of movies. Lawrence of Arabia is one of the most influential and beautiful movies ever made. This epic sends us on a journey through the sand that is fun, heartbreaking, heartwarming, and shocking all at once. Peter O'Toole gives us one of his finest performances. Lean has a bunch of good movies, but this is his magnum opus. This movie has a brilliant score, cinematography, direction, and of course the acting. Big shouts to Omar Sharif. He's one of the best of all time. If you have about 4 hours to kill, you couldn't pick a better way to do it. 68. Menace to Society, 1993, directed by the Hughes brothers. A hood horror movie. This is easily one of the best hood movies ever made. It's gritty and violent as hell. I mean, it's pedal to the metal, nothing to slow this thing down, and it's a fun but devastating film. The Hughes brothers made this when they were like 21, which is crazy. This film is about a young drug dealer, summer in LA. A whole bunch of people get slayed in this movie. O-Dog and Kane are two of the craziest dudes you'll ever see. This film is very real though, and unfortunately, a lot of stuff you'll see in this movie still goes on today. 67. Memento, 2000, directed by Christopher Nolan. This is a movie that will really make you see how much we take memory for granted. This movie's about a guy who has short-term memory loss who is looking for the killer of his dead wife and getting help from various people, but he doesn't know who to trust. This movie is one of those movies you gotta watch a few times to really get it, but whether you understand it or not, it's still a good time. Guy Pearce gives us an all-star performance, and there's a whole bunch of people from The Matrix in here too. Christopher Nolan made a statement with this, his first studio picture. Following is one of the best indie films made, but who knew what he'd do from that? Wouldn't have expected this, and especially all the other stuff in the future. 66. Killing of a Sacred Deer, 2017, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. The Greek freak Yorgos made one of the most interesting thrillers I've ever seen. This movie is about a kid who befriends the surgeon who may or may not be responsible for his father's death. As their friendship progresses, the surgeon's family ends up undergoing some strange illnesses. This movie is trippy and weird in all the best ways. Barry Keoghan gives a star-making performance, and of course Colin Farrell and Nicole Kidman give us some great performances. This film is unsettling and will make you ask yourself, what would you do in this situation? Shout out to Sonny Soljic. He's a great skater and actor. 66. The Godfather 2, 1974, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. I know it was you, Fredo. This is one of those. The sequel is better than the original deals. Honestly, the sequels often are. I know people consider The Godfather as one of the greatest or one of the greatest films of all time, but The Godfather 2 goes so much harder. We get a prequel and a sequel in one. We see Michael really transform into something in this movie, and we get that all-star De Niro performance as young Vito. This movie is violent and dark and gritty continuation of a great story that I think is one of the best movies ever made. I'm sure you've seen this already, so I don't need to recommend it. 64. Lethal Weapon 2, 1989, directed by Richard Donner. So this is one of the best action comedy movies ever made. Another case where the sequel is much better, in my opinion at least. We all know what Lethal Weapon is, and we all know how great Riggs and Murtaugh are. Now, we have Leo Getz, brilliantly played by my man Joe Pesci. This movie has some crazy action, some crazy laughs, and oddly, a little social commentary on a serious issue at the time. Richard Donner is honestly one of the most underrated directors of all time, and this movie really proves it. 63. Ally, Fear Eats the Soul, 1974, directed by Rainer Werner Fassbinder. You'll hear this director's name a few more times. Rainer is a guy that means a lot to me. His story and his movies have been pretty big for me. We lost him way too young, but luckily he left us more movies than most will ever make in their life. Fear Eats the Soul is about an Arab immigrant who's working in Germany, and he falls in love with an elderly German lady. I think this movie is one of the realest movies about interracial dating. I mean, this isn't the first one, but it's probably the first one to feel real. Something about the way Fassbinder tells the story is so captivating. If you haven't seen this, please watch it. 62. Detroit Rock City, 1999, directed by Adam Rifkin. A fun coming of age movie about four die-hard Kiss fans who have tickets to see them in Detroit, but getting there is more of a challenge than they ever thought. This is a classic 90s movie that they just don't make like this anymore. It's got a great soundtrack, some classic 90s actors, and just some pure fun. I used to watch this movie with the skate homies all the time back in the day. In a weird way, it's a comfort film for me. If you're a Kiss fan, this is already one of your favorite movies. 61. SLC Punk, 1998, directed by James Marandino. Oh man, I'm showing y'all my fun rocker skater side. I grew up into punk music, skateboarding, and crazy antics. This movie embodies a lot of that in me. SLC Punk is about a couple of punk rockers growing up in Salt Lake City. They are growing up and getting older, and they're at a crossroads of stay a rebel or conform and live the life their parents want. I'll say this movie is great for any kid that grew up alternative. They grew up being told that they were weird or different. A film about the ups and downs of battling with being different and conforming to societal norms and being all sellout. If you're into punk culture, this is a must watch for you. 60. Only Lovers Left Alive, 2013, directed by Jim Jarmusch. Okay, I love vampires, and there were so many vampire movies I left off the list. Specifically Thirst, Let the Right One In, and Interview with a Vampire. Only Lovers is such a beautiful film about two vampires that have been married for a very long time but live in opposite parts of the world. When one of them hits a stride of depression, the other comes to comfort them, and we see how love comes in all forms. Tilda Swinton and Tom Hiddleston are spectacular in this movie and are so cute together. This movie is a vibe with great music, costuming, and direction. Good old Jim gave us one of his best with this one. So much style and emotion without it all being thrown in your face. 59. La Femme Nikita, 1990, directed by Luc Besson. Oh, La Femme Nikita, what we call pure action fun. Luc Besson has a style, that's for sure. And if you like it, you like it. La Femme Nikita is about a young drug addict woman who gets busted by the cops and ends up becoming a hitman for them. This film got a cool story, some dope action, and it's got an appearance from a hitman we might talk about later on this list. The score is amazing, and I actually listened to it quite a bit. Besson gives us one of the best French action movies I've seen, and I couldn't recommend this enough. 58. Crimes of the Future, 2022, directed by David Cronenberg. Now, I know a lot of people didn't like this movie, and that's fine. And I know a lot of you guys are thinking, of all the Cronenberg movies, you put this one on here? Well, yes, this is a favorites list, not a best, and I love Crimes of the Future. This sci-fi movie is about a dystopian future where people have evolved to not feel pain. A couple played by Lea Seydoux and Viggo Mortensen are performance artists as she performs intricate surgeries on him and remove unnecessary organs. But there is far more than meets the eye. This movie is sexy and eerie, and it's a fun take on what the future could possibly hold. I mean, I can't say you'll like this movie as much as me, but I would give it a shot. 57. Love in the Afternoon, 1972, directed by Eric Rohmer. One of the best of the six tales from French auteur Eric Rohmer. This movie is about a guy who's married and has a good life, but his world is flipped upside down when an old friend comes into his life to complicate things. This movie shows how human we can be inside relationships. Rohmer's movies show us how people can be all on all levels. I feel like he was just an observer of life and love. I think this is one of those French movies about relationships that everyone needs to see. Make sure you guys are watching this guy's movies. 56. Blade Runner 2049, 2017, directed by Denis Villeneuve. One of the best sequels ever made. This can be compared to Aliens, how another director came through and delivered something on par with the original. In my opinion, Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049 are two of the best sci-fi movies ever made. This is one of the most beautiful worlds and one of the coolest stories we've had in a sci-fi movie in a while. Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford are incredible in this. It's stacked with some of the best visuals and action we've had in the last 10 years. I mean, this is coming from the guy who made the Doom movies. This film is so freaking good, I may have to just put it on while I work on this video. 55. Poor Things, 2023, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. You've already heard his name, and you will hear it again. Yorgos is the hottest director in the game after this one. And I mean, it's kind of crazy. I got a movie from just 1 year ago on here. But I love this movie. I've seen it quite a bit. It's a little bit of a departure for Yorgos. This movie is strange and art house as it is. It's kind of commercial. It made a lot of money and won a bunch of Oscars for good reasons. Emma Stone and Yorgos give us the spice with this beautiful and dark sci-fi story about a girl who is trying to find herself. Let me tell you, if you haven't seen this yet, quit playing around and watch it. There's a reason Emma Stone won Best Actress over Lily Gladstone. 54. Blue Velvet, 1986, directed by David Lynch. I kind of want to sing Blue Velvet for y'all, but I'll spare your ears. Blue Velvet for me is the one David Lynch movie. I know everyone loves Mulholland Drive, and I do as well, but Blue Velvet to me is the sauce. This murder mystery is wild and surreal, but in all the best ways. Dennis Hopper is an absolute must-see, and Laura Dern, Kyle MacLachlan, and Isabel Rossellini all serve it up hot in this one, and David gives us some of that nice creepy direction he always has. The club scenes are amazing, and by the end, you'll be singing Blue Velvet constantly. 53. Y Tu Mama Tambien, 2001, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. One of the best coming-of-age movies of all time, an early one from one of the big three from Mexico. Cuarón gives us an interesting story about opposite dynamics. Two best friends, one poor, one rich, take a road trip to a secluded beach with a pretty older lady. On the way there, they all discover things about themselves and each other that may or may not impact their friendships. This movie is fun, all while being heartbreaking at the same time. The ending to this is one of the best endings yet depressing to any movie on this list. Make sure you watch this classic from Mexico. 52. Rosemary's Baby, 1968, directed by Roman Polanski. One of the more interesting horror movies of the 60s and certainly one of the best. Roman gives us some eerie stuff here with the way he framed this whole thing. It's so unsettling, and even on rewatches, you are still screaming out for someone to help this girl. The film actually is so relatable to so many women I know. Their main goal in life is to have a baby, and even if that baby isn't quite what you hope for, I would suggest this to you. If you are a horror fan out there, if you haven't seen it, but I'm guessing you have. We get some all-star performances from the lovely Mia Farrow, John Cassavetes, and Ruth Gordon. 51. The Master, 2012, directed by PTA. You definitely will hear this director's name a couple more times. The Master is one of those movies that every time you watch it, you change your mind on what it's about. You change your mind on what these characters represent, who they are to each other. What do their relationships mean? This film is about a man who finds a cult leader and becomes one of the peddlers of his message. But their relationship starts to unravel as eyes begin to open. We get some all-star performance from Joaquin Phoenix and the late, very great Philip Seymour Hoffman. Paul Thomas Anderson is truly one of the best voices we have in cinema right now. 50. Bound, 1996, directed by the Wachowskis. One of the best LGBT movies ever made, the Wachowskis serve us something real hot in this thrilling and violent crime movie starring two of the sexiest ladies of the 90s, Gina Gershon and Jennifer Tilly. These two ladies team up to steal a few million from the mob, but of course, everything doesn't go so smooth. This movie is tense and sexy, fun and violent, a perfect pre-Matrix film that you can see little flashes of the Matrix in. If you're into 90s crime thrillers, this is a must-watch, and for nothing, the two leads. 49. Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind, 1984, directed by Hayao Miyazaki. One of the slickest anime movies from the man himself. We'll talk about Hayao the Goat later too. But Nausicaa is about a young girl who's just really in touch with the forest and all that inhabit it. She's one with nature and weird bugs of this world. Of course, greedy evil people want to come and exploit the resources, and that's always a problem. Nausicaa is super fun and is some gorgeous animation, a super chill vibe with one of the most likable lead characters. Nausicaa is awesome and one of the coolest heroines of all time. 48. Matilda, 1996, directed by Danny DeVito. Pure fun 90s classics. Most of us know this movie, I would think. This film is about a young girl who discovers she has telekinetic powers. She's highly intelligent and uses her powers to save the school she goes to from the evil Miss Trunchbull. Now, let me tell you, this movie is funny as shit. The scene where Bruce eats the cake is one of my favorites. The entire confection. Danny DeVito takes a nice turn as a director and is hysterical as Matilda's asshole father. Also, the scene when she glues the hat to his head is priceless. 47. The Florida Project, 2017, directed by Sean Baker. This movie should have gotten an Oscar nom for Best Picture. The Florida Project is one of the best movies ever made from one of the best directors of all time, Sean Baker. We'll discuss him again later. The Florida Project is a powerful film that really is plotless, but it follows a young girl and her struggling mother as they live in a motel just trying to survive every day. Sean shows us his brilliance with his first-time actors, although we get a great performance from Willem Dafoe. This movie's cinematography is spectacular, with a bunch of pretty colors, and its scoreless ride with just music playing from things in the movie really gives it a real edge. 46. A Bronx Tale, 1993, directed by Robert De Niro. Without a doubt, one of the best coming-of-age stories and stories on race relations. This movie is about a young Italian kid growing up in the Bronx with two father figures, one a criminal and one straight. All the while, he is falling in love with a black girl in the early 60s. Robert De Niro did a great job directing this and acting as C's father. Chaz Palminteri is incredible as Sonny. This movie has everything. Some action, drama, humor, great soundtrack, and a great ending. If you haven't seen this, I'd shoot it up to the top of your watch list. 45. Mid-90s, 2018, directed by Jonah Hill. This will be a nice pairing with the next film we're going to talk about, but Mid-90s is a movie that I actually didn't care for too much when I first saw it. When I said I think I need to rewatch this, I'm very glad I did. This movie hits way harder on a rewatch. Jonah Hill gives us a great coming-of-age story with skating and how the lifestyle and culture can seep into one at a young age. A certain type of kid gravitates to skating. This movie shows that. This film is written very well and very well acted by all real skaters. This is a classic skateboarding movie and probably one of the best. 44. Kids, 1995, directed by Larry Clark. Now, I know this is a weird one to have on a favorites movies list, but I've seen this movie a lot, and it's still a classic. If you don't know what this is about, I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to say, if you want to watch it, make sure you read up on it first. But Kids is a weird coming-of-age movie that all takes place in one day in New York City. We get some wild party, skateboarding, and fighting scenes in this NC-17 masterpiece. I think this movie has aged incredibly well, and it launched the careers of Rosario Dawson and Chloe Sevigny. Rest in peace to Justin Pierce and Harold Hunter. Always got love for the skaters. 43. House Party, 1990, directed by Reginald Hudlin. A movie I saw so much growing up, and the one that kicked off the lackluster franchise. But this one is golden. Great high school movie and party movie. We get young performances from Tisha Campbell, Martin Lawrence, of course, Kid and Play. We get some funny moments from the late Robin Harris and some good party scenes with dancing and freestyle rap battles. It's just a relatable movie if you've ever thrown or been to a high school party. Def check this out for a good laugh and some late 80s, early 90s fun. 42. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 2019, directed by Quentin Tarantino. The first QT movie on the list, and it won't be the last. Once Upon a Time is a 3-hour hangout movie where Brad Pitt and Leonardo are just doing what they do best. I'm telling you, this movie is so funny, especially on rewatches. I've seen this movie a lot, and for it to only be 5 years old, and I'll see it a bunch more times. The magic in this movie lies in the writing and the acting of the two leads. These two have such chemistry. I hope they work together again. This is another fun retelling of history from the man Quentin Tarantino. 41. Leon, the Professional, 1994, directed by Luc Besson. No women, no kids, right? Probably the best Hitman movie next to the other Luc Besson movie I talked about earlier. This is a great companion piece with La Femme Nikita. Leon is about a great and odd and sometimes little uncomfortable relationship between an older man and a young girl. Natalie Portman gives a child performance of a lifetime in this. We also get an all-star performance from John Reno, the hitman, the cleaner, and the GOAT Gary Oldman. Some of the slickest action and such fun and such a simple movie. This one is super rewatchable and quotable. 40. Toy Story 3, directed by Lee Unkrich. Ugh, this movie was like the punctuation of my childhood. Me and Andy are essentially the same age, and this movie here resonated with me in a crazy way. I cried so hard watching this in theaters. I felt like Andy and I grew up together. We were pretty much the same age when every movie came out, and we were kind of in the same places in our life. TS3 gives us some sauce, but with some of the best new characters, like Barbie, Ken, and Lotso. The writing in this movie is absolutely brilliant. It's a fun ride from start to finish, and I can quote this thing with you all day long. Anyone who grew up with Toy Story will feel this movie to its core. 39. The Royal Tenenbaums, 2001, directed by Wesley Anderson. There are no teams. The first West movie I saw, and it's still my favorite. The Royal Tenenbaums shows one of the most interesting family dynamics that most people cannot relate to, yet it's still so gripping. We get some monster performances from Gene Hackman, Luke Wilson, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Danny Glover. We also really have the true birth of West's style. This movie, for a fun and pretty comedy, carries some heavy ass themes and tackles some serious stuff. It showed us a mature growth from Bottle Rocket and Rushmore. West made his mark on the film world, and I think it started with this. 38. Perks of Being a Wallflower, 2012, directed by Steven Chbosky. Hey, I actually read this book, so I can compare them both, and they are masterpieces. My complaint with the film is the book is a little more hardcore, and the movie tamed it down a bit. It could have swung for the fences, but I get wanting to reach a larger audience. Even still, I often love this movie. Emma Watson and Ezra Miller give some of their career bests. This movie just makes you miss being young and makes you reminisce on some of your own experiences. High school is a weird place. It can be scary. But this movie shows you it doesn't have to all be bad when you have good friends. 37. Dogtooth, 2009, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. We've talked about this guy quite a bit now. Yorgos does remind me of the homie Lars von Trier, who we discussed a little earlier. He knows how to hit you over the head with shock value, but put it all in perspective on his artistic talents. Having said that, Dogtooth is a movie I honestly don't know if I could suggest to anyone. As much as I love it and think it is a total masterpiece, I know for a fact most people will look at me like I had two heads after watching it. This film is about three children who are completely under their parents' control and have been brainwashed. Outside forces come in and shows them that life isn't quite what they thought. I'm going to watch this with caution if you choose to. It's in Greek, not English, like the other Yorgos movies on this list, but if you get it, you get it. 36. Election, 1999, directed by Alexander Payne. If you watch my channel, you've heard me discuss this film a few times. It's one of those weird films that when I see it, it kind of sits with you. We all know Alex Payne a little better now, but in 99, this dude was still relatively unknown, and I think a lot of people don't appreciate his brand of dark humor. This film was about a teacher whose life gets all twisted up over this election. We get career best from Reese Witherspoon, Matthew Broderick, and Chris Klein. The writing for this adaptation is A1, and I would give this movie a chance. Could be the change of pace you need. 35. Red Rocket, 2021, directed by Sean Baker. This is one of the newer films on the list, but I've watched it several times and know all the words, and I'm always down to watch it. Sean Baker is a director I think is the best working right now next to Yorgos, who we've talked about a few times now. This dude just doesn't miss. All bangers, with something about Red Rocket that just has a charm that I love. Although the lead, Mikey, is a POS, Simon Rex gives us his career best, playing a washed-up porn star trying to restart his life with a young girl he meets. This movie has several themes in it, and it's so funny. Cinematography is absolutely beautiful, showing us those Texas sunsets and beautiful lights in the factories. I know the Florida Project, which we talked about earlier, may be better, but this is the one for me. 34. All About Eve, 1950, directed by Joseph L. Mankiewicz. Let me tell you, if you haven't seen this movie, my God, you are missing out. Probably the bitchiest movie on the list next to Jawbreaker, and one coming up later. All About Eve is a movie about doing whatever it takes to get to the top and stepping on whoever you need to get there. Bette Davis gives us an all-star performance as Margot Channing, and this is one of the first times we see the gorgeous Marilyn Monroe on screen. All About Eve is a movie that when I first saw it, I immediately knew it was one of my new favorites. After watching it many times, I now adore this movie on a whole new level. A masterclass of acting. 33. Beauty and the Beast, 1991, directed by Gary Trousdale and Kirk Wise. My favorite Disney movie with my favorite princess, the Lovely Belle. Beauty and the Beast is one of those movies I had on VHS for as long as I can remember, and I watched the hell out of it from ages 6 to 8. Burn that tape out just like the next one I'm going to talk about. Belle is everything you could want in a lady. Smart, pretty, and stands strong on her convictions. A loving soul that devotes herself to her loved ones and doesn't go for a guy based on material or superficial merits. Now, I'm not analyzing this film too much. It's just a big part of my childhood, and I love this movie until the day I die. 32. The Matrix, 1999, directed by the Wachowskis. I think everyone agrees this is one of the most fun and interesting movies ever made. A groundbreaking sci-fi action spectacle that kind of changed movies forever. From the great year, I think I've watched this movie at least 150 times. I watched the bank shootout scene so many times that I wore it out on the tape and it didn't play. This movie needs no kind of explanation. I know all of you watching this have seen it, and I think you guys can understand why it's one of my favorites. A defining movie of the 90s and honestly, my life. I watch this movie at least once a year these days just to remind myself of the legend. 31. Paris, Texas, 1984, directed by Wim Wenders. Honestly, some of the best cinematography I've ever seen. Wenders is a German man painted the landscape of America so beautifully in this movie. He has this odd ability to really embody whatever place he makes a film in and has been doing it for decades. Paris, Texas is a road trip movie about a man who is reconnecting with his son while trying to find his mother. Harry Dean Stanton, yes. That man makes me cry every time I watch this movie. This is a film you watch with a loved one and you appreciate your lives together. 30. Cinema Paradiso, 1988, directed by Giuseppe Tornatore. A love letter to film, a movie that kind of sums me up as a kid and how my love for cinema came about. But instead of Alfredo, I had my mom. This is one of the most touching and beautiful films I've ever watched. Set at an Italian village post World War II, all that this little village has is the cinema, and everything is centered around it. It's the main source of entertainment, it's a big source of income, and it's the way all these people gather around and share the same exact experience for a few hours. Filled with a bunch of fun little quirks and funny characters, this heartwarming film makes me cry every time I watch it. Please watch this if you love cinema just as much as me. 29. La Cérémonie, 1995, directed by Claude Trebal. This is a deep cut French film starring one of my favorite actresses of all time, the go Isabelle Huppert. This film is about a woman who goes to a house keep for a rich family, and she ends up making friends with one of their enemies. There's so much I love about this film. It's one of those movies you kind of just let take you in, and you on the ride, and by the end, you're gonna be like, what the fuck did I just watch? This movie isn't one I suggest to anyone, but to all my cinephiles, you gotta watch this. Claude Chabrol is one of the greats from France. Take a dive into his films. 28. La Haine, 1995, directed by Matthew Kassovitz. Honestly, one of the most American feeling French movies I've ever seen. A film where you can see our director was very influenced by American culture, but he put his own French twist on it. A fun black and white movie about police brutality in France. A story of three friends going on a one-day adventure and discovering things about themselves and each other. I'm going to tell you right now, the ending of this will have your mouth wide open for a good minute. This movie is incredible in every single way. I would have to say, this is probably one of the best movies ever made without question. 27. Django Unchained, 2012, directed by Quentin Tarantino. Okay, don't click off this video. I know a lot of you guys hate this movie, and I honestly don't know why. This movie is funny, packed with action, has some of the best acting of the last 20 years. I've watched this movie about 60 times, and it's 3 fucking hours. Tarantino gives us another retelling of history, kind of like the aforementioned Once Upon a Time and The Great and Glorious Bastards. Now, this one isn't an exact event that we went on like the other two movies, but I feel like there weren't a lot of Django type dudes running around pre-Civil War. Jamie Foxx, Christoph Waltz, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Sam Jackson give us some of the performances of their careers, and QD serves it up hot with the writing and direction. This is a slavery movie I can watch over and over. 26. Barry Lyndon, 1975, directed by Stanley Kubrick. This movie is a painting. It's beautiful in every way. Long and gripping, fun and depressing, Barry Lyndon is a story of Redmond Barry, who tries to swindle his way to aristocratic status. The thing with Kubrick is he loves movies bleak, and we'll talk about him again later on this list. Barry Lyndon is one of those costume period pieces that really sticks the landing. So much happens in this tale about the ultimate downfall of a talented but flawed man. The thing that really gets me in this movie is why I kind of love Barry, as detestable as he is because of his relationship with his son. The scene with the horse, one of the best shot scenes and some of the best editing at the time. I personally think this is the movie that defines Kubrick and shows all of his talents in one. 25. The Handmaiden, 2016, directed by Park Chan-wook. One of the best LGBT movies ever made and one of the most stylish. Park is known for Old Boy, and everyone loves that movie. It's good, but it ain't one of my favorites from him. This here, in my opinion, is his magnum opus, and my god, the style and story with this one is just next level. I know this is based off a book that I yet again haven't read, but this movie here does make me want to read it. This movie is a Korean film about 3 people who are all trying to swindle each other, but in the process, the 2 ladies fall in love and plans change. This movie is just cool. It's one the cool kids should talk about in the back of the classroom. But unfortunately, it's just a film nerds like me. Watch this on Prime Video ASAP. 24. Pulp Fiction, 1994. Directed by Quentin Tarantino. English, motherfucker, do you speak it? one of the most quotable films on this list and most popular. I mean, I am a 90s dude, so you can't be too shocked this movie made the list. I've seen it many, many times. I watched it recently, and it's still just as good as it ever was. I know this is like considered a film bro movie or whatever, and I could give a shit less. This movie is fun and entertaining, and at the time, nothing really was out like it. I mean, of course, the Goodfellas influence all over it, but this movie has a heart and mind of its own, and it made our boy QT a freaking rock star. My favorite character is Jules, and my favorite scene is actually when Butch is in the cab with Esmeralda after his fight. I'm weird like that. 23. Kiki's Delivery Service, 1989, directed by Hayao Miyazaki. It's really hard to explain this one, why I like it, and why it resonated with me. Out of all Hayau's movies, this one is so relaxing. Kiki is an adorable young witch who just is having a great young witch journey. Her and her cat are just so lovely and heartwarming. Every time I watch this movie, I just get a nice feeling inside and a mood just settles. It's just a simple plot, a simple story with easy characters. But there's a pulse and comfort that this movie has almost like no other anime movie. I know of all the amazing anime movies out there, this isn't the highest ranked on the list. Yes, it is. It's my list, damn it. And if I want Kiki this high, that's where it's gonna be. 22. The Goonies, directed by Richard Donner. Okay, do I really need to even describe this movie or talk about why it's one of my favorites? I think this is one of most people will agree is an incredible and fun movie. This is one of the defining adventure movies of the 80s. I mean, this movie makes you want to be a kid again. And not a kid now, a kid in the 80s, or at least the 90s. There is a magic to this movie that is absolutely lightning in a bottle. Tell me you watched this and didn't immediately want to go look for One Eye Willie's treasure with your homies. We get Corey Feldman and a young Josh Brolin, who's a megastar now. Ugh, I really don't need to say anything more about this one. Rest in peace to Richard Donner. 21. All About My Mother, 1999, directed by Pedro Almodovar. If you want to talk about style and substance, look no further than this crazy Spanish melodrama. Almodovar is absolutely one of the most brilliant guys to make a movie. I mean, the writing, score, cinematography, and set designs are to die for. This film is about a woman who loses her son in a car crash, who is on a mission to alert his father, but my God, it's so much more than that. All About My Mother is a movie that just leaves you wanting more. Almost like all his movies. We get a breakout performance from the gorgeous Penelope Cruz and some direction that only a few dudes can match. I really want all of you to watch this movie. Don't be turned off by subtitles. I promise you're missing out if you do. 20. The Fox and His Friends, 1975, directed by Rainer Werner Fassbinder. One of the most heartbreaking LGBT stories I've ever seen, The Fox and His Friends is a movie that makes me feel a lot of things, mostly real life implications. German director Rainer starred in this movie and as the titular character of the Fox, and it was fitting. He played it. Because I believe this movie is a reflection on his real life. I read a lot about this guy. I was quite fascinated with him, and after watching a film that will be on this list later, and I found out a lot of things. His love life was one of the most interesting things I've read about, and it makes me understand this movie a whole lot more. The film is about a low class circus worker who ends up winning the lottery and getting used by a handsome man he meets. This movie is very frustrating, but oh so good. I truly think Rainer is one of the most interesting guys to get in front of and behind the camera. 19. All That Jazz, 1978, directed by Bob Fosse. This movie is so good because it's actually about Fosse's life. That dude was crazy, but man, what a genius he was. What a bold man to lay himself on the operation table like this for everyone to dissect his life, flaws and all. And Roy Scheider, who, in my opinion, never got the credit he deserved, was the right man to do it. This is another character study with one of the best dance numbers in movie history. All That Jazz is about a filmmaker and stage director who is going through all kinds of stuff in his life, battling addiction in the form of drugs, alcohol, and women. A man who is slowly killing himself with the things that is keeping him alive, his art. I can't explain how Bob makes these movies so good, but god damn, this guy is so good at what he did. Number 18, Cabaret, 1972, directed by Bob Fosse. This movie here is one I could gush about all day. I love all that jazz, but I had to put this one ahead because of the music mostly. As a guy who wasn't the biggest musical fan, I think this movie is perfect. I'm trying not to talk too long about this one, but I just adore everything about it. Liza Minnelli gave us one of the best performances of all time, singing, dancing, and acting with incredible ease and grace. The Cabaret Club is one of the coolest places ever put in a movie. This film is about a young club dancer who falls for a young man she meets, and the relationship is affected by outsiders and the mystique of one of their sexuality. Bro, this movie is so damn fire. If you haven't seen this, watch this with some cool lights on and have a drink or two. If you're wondering, my favorite songs from the film are Money Money and Mine Hair. Start singing them and I'll sing right along with you. 17. Three Colors Red, 1994, directed by Krzysztof Kieslowski. The last film in Christoph's color trilogy of the French flag, Red is really a film about chance. Red is a beautiful film about an odd friendship that occurs between a pretty young model and an older retired judge. Everything in this movie is red. It's just a flavor choice he went with that I think was a great way to invoke mood on the watcher and enhance the experience. This film ties up the trilogy very nicely, as well with just being one quick scene. It's hard to describe this movie, it's just one you have to watch. But make sure you watch them all in order: blue, white, then red. 16. Three Colors Blue, 1993, directed by Krzysztof Kieslowski. Okay, well, I just couldn't have one, and it was hard to put one over the other. The first of the Three Colors trilogy, well, in my opinion, there are four of them if you include The Double Life of Veronique. Blue is about depression and grief, and my man, Key really makes you feel that. This has to be one of the most stylish movies ever, with all the pretty blue stuff and a stellar performance from the great Juliette Binoche. This is a masterclass of filmmaking, from the writing to the acting, not to mention the style. This movie has so much flavor and substance in such a short runtime. When I first saw this movie, I was just stirred up with every emotion one can feel. It's a great experience. Number 15, A Clockwork Orange, 1971, directed by Stanley Kubrick. A movie I saw quite young, Clockwork Orange is one of the coolest yet most effed up movies you'll see. A character study on a teenage boy, Alex DeLarge. We see a young man's life go through some crazy changes as he pays for his villainous actions he does. I don't know, this movie feels like a weird future, a weird world to live in. But, as Stanley does, he makes beauty out of such bleak material. Now I confess, I never read the book, but I've been told that it will ruin the movie for me, so I probably never will. I think Kubrick really shows his creative genius with this one, but I must say, it's not for everyone. 14. The Terminator, 1984, directed by James Cameron. This movie, without a doubt, is a horror film. This movie here, for me, is just like heaven. 80s fun, crazy action, a slick yet very simple story, and some badass characters. We get the real birth of Arnold here, who makes a villainous turn as the Terminator. The dude was just different at the time. Jacked, Austrian, and badass. Arnold made this one of the coolest and scariest sci-fi horror slashers ever. This is one of those movies I literally can watch over and over and still get excited at the club shootout, the car chase, and of course the police station scene. A pop culture icon. People forget how wild and crazy this is because the second one is so emotional and caring. Put this on soon, and remember, come with me if you want to live. 13. Blade Runner, 1982, directed by Ridley Scott. This movie flopped upon release and people didn't get it. Now, I was born well after this movie came out, so I saw the final cut, which Ridley intended to give us. I was mesmerized by this beautiful dystopian future LA we got. Now, I never read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, but I can imagine it's great just like the movie it was adapted into. Harrison Ford showed us he is far more than Han Solo in this movie. We get this beautiful tale about AI versus human, what it means to be human, and how we should maybe be gearing up to look into the future. This movie's visuals and score are some of my favorites to fall asleep to. I will put this on Blu ray and fall asleep all the time. Another movie that is violent and deep, yet to me is quite relaxing and settling. In my opinion, this is the greatest sci fi movie ever made. I know 2001 exists, but I think this movie is very telling of where a possible distant future can go and raises tons of relevant questions. 12. Taxi Driver, 1976, directed by Martin Scorsese. One of the slickest and most stylish character studies ever. Robert De Niro and Marty give us their A game in this character study about a man who is slightly losing it as he drives a cab in New York City. There is so much to love about this movie. The score and cinematography are A1. Paul Schrader's script is brilliant, and truthfully, this movie is quite peaceful for me. It's oddly meditative and relaxing, even though we see so much ugliness on the screen. We also get a young Jodie Foster performance that is to die for. I never understood the people who don't like this movie. I think we knew right away that Marty was going to be something special with this and Mean Streets. Taxi Driver is one of the first movies I watched when I really took the journey into exploring films in my late teen years, and it's lived with me ever since. 11. There Will Be Blood, 2007, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. I drink your milkshake. I drank it up. Ugh, this makes me mad because I didn't see this movie until I was a little older. When it came out, I got wrapped up in this whole There Will Be Blood, No Country thing, and somehow I didn't see this shit until adulthood. And when it ended, I was so mad at myself for letting this masterpiece go for so long without me. PTA, one of the best directors, who we talked about already and will maybe discuss again, gave us what most would consider his magnum opus. Daniel Day Lewis, my lord, a tour de force of acting, and one of the most creative artists of our time, has given us possibly a top 10 performance of all time. This gritty revisionist western about a man who comes up major in the oil business is really one of those movies you really have to see to understand its brilliance. If I told you about this movie, it really wouldn't do it any justice. So sit back and watch this for the first time, or watch it again and just fall in love for the first time again. Cracking the top 10. Number 10. Goodfellas, 1990, directed by Martin Scorsese. I feel like I really don't need to explain myself or this movie or why it's my favorite. The opening line in this movie alone probably cemented its legacy before anyone even watched the damn thing. This is one of the defining movies of the 90s and the 21st century, and only fitting we opened up the decade with it. One of the most imitated movies ever made, Goodfellas is one of those gangster movies that really makes you feel like being a gangster is one of the coolest fucking things you could ever be. The dark true story of Henry Hill turns from gangster to snitch is one of the funniest yet grittiest tales you are ever gonna see. This movie is packed with quotes. I mean, packed. There are so many lines from this movie spit out on a daily basis. Sucks Ray and Scorsese never work together again. This is one pretty much undeniable. If you don't like this movie, I don't even know what we could talk about. Number 9. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, 1996, directed by Sergio Leone. This movie needs no intro. Widely considered the best Western ever made, it's not only the best, but also my favorite. Now, there are a lot of Westerns I love so much, but this epic is one of the slickest and coolest ever. Mostly due to Eli Wallach's amazing turn as Tuco and the most resilient villain in movie history. Leone blew my mind when I first saw this movie with how much it influenced so much other shit I had seen before. The brilliant score, great action sets, and fun and simple story make this adventure an epic for the ages. One I'm sure some of you have watched with your granddad or your dad probably 50 times. I get so excited every time I see this intense Western, packed with fun quotes and great scenes of dudes just getting slayed. 8. Vertigo, 1952, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Ugh, this movie here is filmmaking at its finest, coming from one of the most influential directors of all time. Hitchcock serves us up a beautiful mystery on a silver platter with one of the best mid-movie plot twists of all time. This movie about a man hired to find out the whereabouts of a friend's wife turns into a love story about obsession and loss. This movie has one of the best scores, editing, and direction of all time. The crazy thing is, this movie flopped when it came out, but now I think almost everyone knows the importance and beauty of this movie. Jimmy Stewart gives maybe his most chilling performance of his career as we see a man's life get turned upside down over love. When I first saw this, let me tell you, my jaw was hanging by the end. Make sure you watch it if you've never seen it. Number 7. The Deer Hunter, 1978, directed by Michael Cimino. One of the most gruesome anti-war movies, The Deer Hunter became an instant favorite after my first watch. The roulette scene on the first watch really blew my mind. Cimino gave us one of the most emotionally gripping movies about war and the effects it has on those who come home. As fucked up as this movie is, it oddly adds comfort to me every time I watch it. The wedding scene, the hunting scenes, the scenes with De Niro and Streep just hanging out are some of the best stuff in this movie. The side B stuff, if you will, get you just as much as the side A. We get a heartbreaking Oscar winner performance from the GOAT, Christopher Walken. This may be a tough watch for some, but I think it's one everyone should see at least once before they die. Number 6. Terminator 2, 1991, directed by Jimmy Cameron. In my opinion, the action movie that set the tone for the 21st century besides The Matrix we talked about earlier. James Cameron came with it and the sequel, which is easily the best sequel, made up there with The Empire Strikes Back and Lethal Weapon 2. The T-2000 is one of the best villains of all time. Him running at full speed is so scary. The scenes where he first chases John at the mall is one of the best action movie scenes ever. Arnold is at the top of his game. Cameron is at the top of his. And we are all introduced to the man himself, Edward Furlong. This is by far one of the most entertaining action sci-fi movies of all time and an undeniable classic. The first one was gritty and raw. This one was polished and perfect. This is one of those films that if it's on, I'm likely going to stop what I'm doing and watch some of it. Number 5. The Shawshank Redemption, 1994, directed by Frank Darabont. This is probably one of the most universal movies ever made. One that I don't know too many people who will argue with if you tell them it's on your favorites list or it's one of the best. This movie is great because it's a movie about friendship. Friendship without boundaries or limitations. Andy Dufresne's story is touching and probably relatable to more people than one would think. This prison movie based off of Stephen King's novella is one of the best acted, written, and directed movies ever in my opinion. It really makes you think about life and how the justice system works and how you know life sometimes just isn't fair. I'm sure that everyone has seen this one. If not, I'm sure it'll be on TNT or something soon. If someone said pick a movie on this list you are sure almost everyone would like, this is the one I would pick. Number 4. The Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant, 1972, directed by Rainer Werner Fassbinder. I call this film my gateway drug. This is the movie that really made me want to dive a little deeper into foreign language films. I know I've mentioned this guy a few times on this list, but this is the real one for me. A stage play crafted for the screen that all takes place in one room for the most part. This movie is about a fashion designer who ends up falling in love with a young woman she ends up meeting through her cousin. It's about the trials and tribulations of being in a same-sex relationship and one with an age gap. And not only that, There is far more than meets the eye going on in this movie. This movie explores many themes on things we all go through. Not to mention it's beautifully acted and directed. I can't say this is one for everyone, but it sure was for me. Number 3. Fanny and Alexander, 1982, directed by Ingmar Bergman. Okay, I'm going to try not to gush about this movie too much, but damn, it's a good one. I'm going to be honest, I think this is possibly the best movie ever made. A magical Swedish film about two children who lose their father and has to deal with their evil religious stepfather. Now, that sounds like a nice simple plot, but this movie is beautiful in every single way. The costume design, set pieces, score, story, cinematography, acting, and most of all, the direction. Ingmar Bergman delivers a magical Christmas film about love, loss, and family. A fantasy-like illusion with one of the best escape scenes ever put to screen. Listen, this movie is long as hell, and the TV version is even longer. But I promise, if you give this movie a chance, you will not be disappointed. When I first saw this and it ended, I was so upset it was over. I never wanted to leave this world that Ingmar beautifully crafted. Number 2, Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, 1980, directed by Irvin Kershner. Okay, I know a lot of people are likely rolling their eyes or shaking their head. Yes, a Star Wars movie comes in at number 2. Now, hear me out. This movie here kind of changed me as a person. And I'm just going to say, when I watched it in adulthood, something happened in my brain, and I really haven't been the same since. I really don't think I need to offer a description of this movie. The Empire Strikes Back amped up my favorite villain of all time, Darth Vader. The little love brewing with Leia and Han, Luke out with Yoda training, the insane twist at the end, and one of the most bleak endings to a hero movie ever. I'm sorry, this film is just badass on all levels. Just talking about it is making me want to put it on. This sci-fi space journey is 20 times better than the original, which is also fantastic. Yes, I said it. This movie is dark on a cool level and really does translate to real life human emotions right here on Earth, not just in a galaxy far, far away. All right, guys, we have finally made it to the end. Number 1, Boogie Nights, 1997, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. Well, here we are, my number 1 favorite film. Boogie Nights has been my favorite film since I was about 8 or 9. I saw it in theaters when I was about 6 with my mom, and it really was my introduction to cinema other than Disney. This film about the rise and fall of a porn star in 1970s going through the 80s kind of changed my life. I was fascinated with this movie and watched it tons of times all throughout my life, even up to today. At the time of writing this, I've watched this movie less than 2 months ago. I've seen it well over 100 times, and somehow it still never gets old. PTA gave us something magical with his second feature, a film inspired by the likes of guys like Altman and Scorsese, one that has stood the test of time and is a true gem. This film opened my eyes to adult themes and opened my curiosity about life. I probably shouldn't have seen this movie so young, but whatever. If you've never seen this, I highly suggest checking this one out. My favorite movie ever made. Guys, thank you so much. If you made it all the way to the end of my 100 favorite movies, I appreciate you so much. Let me know some of your favorite movies down below. Give me your top 10. I'm still taking requests, guys, but they're just coming in late because I've been really busy. But still, let me know if there's a film or topic you'd like me to review or go over. I will get to it eventually, I promise. Guys, follow me on Letterboxd, Ralph Vader. I'll link that below. Make sure you like and subscribe. It's free. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. I got a podcast, my buddy, The Cutting Room Floor. I'll link that below for more movie content. I will be back next week. Thank you guys again for 100 episodes. And don't forget the popcorn.